welcome back to another episode of Retail and Change. I'm your host, Joseph Lohmann, and I'm joined today by a guest who was one of our first guests ever on the podcast, Attila Bessenyei, CEO of Laurel Retail based out of Hungary. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
So refresh everyone. Give me a little insight into your background. How long have you been in retail? It's been quite a long time.
It's going to be 16 years this year. So
started with the founding of Laurel, I think.
No, it was actually my father. So I'm actually taking over as a second generation.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of run as a family business. He's still active more on the strategical side. I'm running the daily operations since about 5 years. The company itself was founded in 93. So the company is turning 32 years, actually, this year.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And Laurel Retail, what do you do for retail?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. So we do develop POS and self-checkouts, which is one of our core products, but we also do maintenance and support services. So it's kind of end-to-end, and we also touch a bit of system integration in terms of integrating different products to form up, usable solutions for the retailers. It's a quite range portfolio, so I would say we kind of do almost everything that's IT related in retail.
And you do a lot of innovative things. I think that was one of the things that impressed me last year with your, when we had you on as a guest. It was a very interesting conversation, one of the most interesting in the season, I think. So what have you done in the past year? What's new for Laurel?
Yeah, we're moving into the sort of the autonomous stores, but on a hybrid base. So we're kind of trying to convert the traditional retail formats to a 24/7 operation without having employees in the store for the kind of unassisted or remote managed. So we kind of call it a remote managed scenario where without having fancy AI and tons of cameras and additional infrastructure in the store, they can simply convert them to 24/7 operations so they can operate in extended hours without having the cost of the staff on site. So that's a big project that we're doing right now.
Okay. And automation, obviously, self-checkouts is one type of automation. Yeah. What other kinds of automation are required to do a autonomous, no people required store?
I mean, we created this kind of a software tool that is able to remote monitor all the necessary devices for the operation in store. So self-checkouts, definitely one of them. You have to be able to see them remotely with the camera image and do all the functions that normally the cashiers or the assistants are doing for the checkout zone. So if there's a wait problem, you have to be able to manage that. If you have to cancel an item, you have to be able to do that remotely, and then as well as the management of the gates and the entrance solution. So those are the key parts in the mobile application that we also developed for the entrance and access management.
So there is still one person managing things remotely if needed, but
yes,
mostly it's hands-off, no touch.
Yeah, so we have the infrastructure remotely on the cloud base through which you can access the store and see it, including the cameras and all the different system statuses. And basically, yeah, it's one man resource outside the store. It's kind of a shared service that we do, and that single person can manage 10, 20, 30 locations at the same time.
And what's been the consumer reaction to this?
It's been good. I mean, it's a fairly fresh launch, so we're still waiting for the expectation. But then there's been a couple of examples like this in the region, also in Central Eastern Europe. So it's been quite positive, and basically it's allowing not just micro markets and small locations, but it's allowing traditional supermarkets having 200, 500 square meters of food space to operate in a 24/7, not just micro markets and having 10, 20 square meters, small locations. So it's good.
So as you're working with a retailer to launch one of these autonomous markets, do you find yourself spending time helping them to prepare the customer for something like this? Because it's a bit of a drastic change to not walk in and see
the communication is a key part of the game on how you design the entrance, how the customer journey is designed, what they're allowing the customers to do, what not, how they communicate, how the application, the entrance management, the digital onboarding is happening. So yeah, it's a quite I would say tight work with the retailer in terms of designing the customer journey, and it's rather up to us to tell them how they should be doing it than themselves trying to figure out. So we're holding their hands. It's kind of familiar to a self-checkout implementation where we look at their numbers initially, how their basket dynamics are, how many items they're moving and whatsoever, and what's the optimal number of devices they should be implementing, and as well as with the cash management, how many cash management devices they should be using. So yeah, it's a quite close relationship, those types.
Is it a huge investment to automate a store like this?
No, not really. It's a couple of €1,000 for the entrance management, and basically we can upgrade or use the existing devices they have. So if they have self-checkouts, we can use them.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if they don't have self-checkout, they have to implement that. We recommend using electronic shelf labels for the pricing and price automation. So if they have the new promotion coming in after midnight, you can switch automatically. I mean, those are highly recommended add-ons. But those are also usable for normal daily operations. So it's not just for the night shift and the unassisted time period,
right.
But it's also making human labor savings for the retailer in the Laurel Retail operation. That's what's happening. That's what's happening with our existing preferences, that they're kind of moving a store with a self-checkout operation into a 24/7 operation.
So every retail situation is different, right? Every store is different. The way you work with them is different.
Yeah.
Build essentially custom solutions to meet each retailer's need.
Yeah.
So this number is going to vary, but is there a benchmark for how quickly you can see a return on your investment for something like this?
We usually benchmark about, the core model should be around 1 or 2 years on like.
Yes. With all those technological advances.
Yeah, basically what we see is that if they have like a normal daytime operation, we see that they could potentially get about 10 to 20% extra revenue with the night or the extended opening hours. Mm-hmm. So that's giving the baseline for the ROI. And as long as the sort of upgrade of the technology is in a sensible way, in the way that we're trying to do, without having to install hundreds of cameras and all that, the investment is going to be small enough, and then the ROI is just simply that.
Well, at any time you can get a quick return on your investment.
Yes.
So that's not a bad thing.
I mean, even for the self-checkouts, which is usually more sort of cash intensive investment,
mm-hmm.
We try to aim anywhere between 2 to 3 years, and that's achievable even in wages in Hungary. So it's a good technology.
Okay, so let's talk about self-checkouts for a minute. What trends are you seeing in the self-checkout area? I know you mentioned before we started recording some shifts in what kind of retailers are looking for cash automation parts of it too.
Yeah. So yeah, cash automation is definitely becoming a trend, kind of linked to loss prevention, which we're gonna be probably talking about a little later. Sticking with self-checkouts, we see that the model we've done for Decathlon a couple of years ago, moving the Hungarian Decathlon to a fully self-checkout mode with the cash management modules, obviously. We're moving that to FMCG retail right now. So last December, we launched the first store in Hungary that was fully self-checkout. It's a small 150, 200 square meter store with 3 self-checkouts. Mm-hmm. They're kind of going in that direction. So we see several local retailers moving to a fully self-checkout zone. That's kind of valid for small basket-sized stores, convenience-sized stores, but it's actually happening. We've actually upgraded our existing self-checkouts to accommodate that. So we have now sort of a dual work or sort of a hybrid way of working for the self-checkout. So we make attended and unattended mode for the self-checkout. So if there's a queue building up, or if there's a larger load of customers coming into the self-checkout zone, we can turn that into an attended mode. Basically, in that case, we switch off the security scale. We have a customer-facing screen in the back. So and all the additional features of the kind of traditional checkout are becoming available at the self-checkout that normally the attendants or the cashiers are doing. So in that case, basically, the baskets could be moved a lot faster. And that's kind of good for queue busting and managing that extra load. Usually what we see in these stores that they have a single peak time, either in the morning or in the afternoon, depending on the location and the kind of the habit of the store.
Mm-hmm.
And just to accommodate that, then the checkouts can be converted to an attended one. So that's a new development that we found. We had the first installation, but we already have a couple of additional ones scheduled. And as well as adding self-checkouts with the 24/7 operations, that's also coming out because it's a prerequisite for that.
Sure. And when it comes to the cash management part of it, I know you talked about smaller retailers now having more interest in it. For what reason?
Loss prevention. So it's kind of the trust towards the employees, and we see that now with smaller retailers who are having less staff, so usually anywhere between 1 to, I don't know, 3, 4 employees in a store. That
So really small stores.
Small stores, tobacco stores, or small hyper convenient, small sized stores, or even butchers, for instance. We had a PayPal installation actually live with a butcher. So what we see is that the cash management is kind of becoming an issue, and we heard cases when they had 3,000-4,000 euros missing a month from these stores, and it was simply cash missing. So they try to basically take away the cash management from this staff, and as much as they can automate it, and just have a single person running in between the stores and emptying the devices. So it's a fairly strong case now for the PayPals in certain segments of retail. We haven't seen that in the past 2 or 3 years,
Right.
and that's something that's started happening in the past, I would say, 3 to 6 months.
Okay. And as they're looking to these cash management solutions, the automation, are they also looking to self-checkouts, or are they tending to keep that cashier attendant?
They tend to keep it attended. Some of them are mandatory to keep that way by law. So for tobacco stores, you cannot have them unmanned, and you cannot have, let's say, self-service for tobacco sales, for instance. So you have to have somebody behind the counter, and it has to be behind a lock counter. So in certain cases, and looking at the store size, if it's a single employee, small convenience store, there isn't much of a point having a self-checkout there. Unless you will know for the 24/7 or unattended operation of the long run, but then again you cannot do that with tobaccos. So it's more about keeping the traditional checkout and automating the cash management as much as they can. It's a great case for PayPal.
Are you hearing anything else about, in addition to the loss prevention from internal, the fact that what's essentially a locked box for the cash is a little less prone to burglaries and crime? Is that a consideration, or is it mostly just the internal theft?
As the internal.
Okay.
We haven't seen with that many cases with robberies. So yeah, it's rather the internal issue that they're trying to resolve and find a solution to that.
Okay. Loss prevention. Let's continue down that path if you don't mind. It's always a challenge for retailers, especially with we've heard a lot of stories in the news, and whether it's true or not true, theft at self-checkouts. People mis-scanning on purpose or accidentally. What are we seeing in innovation in that area to help retailers manage that risk?
I mean, I've seen solutions live through other work with loss prevention integrated to self-checkouts, managing, an AI-based or camera-based solution, being able to detect miscals and items based on the packing area. That's kind of to replace the security scale. Of course, if we have a scale, just like we do right now, it's a more of a simple solution. It's based on weight. So if you mislabel, let's say, a vodka with a potato label, then I can still put it there. It won't do anything.
So it also catches internal issues too.
Yes.
Mislabeling.
Yeah, mislabeling. So AI is a good addition. With that, you could simplify down the self-checkout. You could have smaller versions or sort of a kiosk version, and you don't need a massive scale and loading area. So there are some solutions already on the market like that. We're also planning to add such additions in the short run. But again, if you look at the news and the articles, that might be valid for North America or certain regions of the world. At least for Central Eastern Europe, we actually haven't really seen any uplift in theft with the implementation of self-checkouts. That's kind of due to two things, in my opinion. One of them is that the theft, if somebody is doing that intentionally, they do it inside the store. They just put it in their jackets, they put it in their backpacks, whatsoever. And the other part is the internal theft. So the other part is actually having the employees included in the events of missing inventory. And then you're left with about, let's say, 1/4 or 1/3 of the events at the checkout. And again, just the same issue as with the cash management. If you have a self-checkout with an automated cash management, the employee has less chance to do anything or do a product return or whatsoever that they usually do when such cases happen. So we just coming to a conclusion, we haven't seen any uplift in the numbers recently with the self-checkout. Traditionally, there's been an increase in theft, but that's kind of the general economics and how the current situation is. And it's more for we still feel that it's more for the inside area of the store. For that, then again, there's computer vision. There are technologies also piloting one store with AI-based camera, which is able to detect different gestures and motions with the in-store consumption, but putting stuff in your backpack. So it's
how fast are you seeing the evolution in the use of AI in loss prevention? Because an autonomous store, that's got to be one of the retailers' biggest concerns. No one's there.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that you use, well, I'm not assuming, I know that you use a lot of AI solutions in your autonomous stores. Is it getting better? Is it getting faster? Is it getting cheaper? What are we seeing this past year? Because AI is really a hot topic.
It's a hot topic. I think the solutions are kind of evolving step by step, so we don't see like a massive, explosion sort of on the solutions that I see on the market. So the majority of the things available were already available last year. I haven't seen any improvement on cost. I mean, the AI is still a very resource intensive thing. I mean, you need a lot of computing power, you need a lot of videos, you have different platform fees. Of course, the technology itself is evolving and more solutions are becoming available. And if somebody develops on a certain model, maybe in 1 or 2 years, a new model comes out, then it just makes it a lot easier to implement. So, for instance, we've done a solution with the exit or access gates that we're able to automatically open the gate. So once there is a successful payment of the self-checkout, we can follow down the person to the gate, and you don't need to scan the physical receipt for the gate to open, but we can automatically trigger the opening event. And it's based on an open source platform, so it's not magic. It's a lot more accessible than ever before. So I do see some improvement from that perspective, that the core technologies are evolving. A lot of tech companies are spending a lot of money on developing these core platforms, which are evolving and evolving.
Do you think this next year we're going to see that massive evolution, or are we still step by step?
I think it's going to be step by step. The whole frictionless retail is still at a certain phase and at a certain kind of size with the camera-based checkouts and all that, but it still needs a lot of cameras, still needs a lot of computing power, so it's a fairly expensive game. I think it's going to take another 5-10 years till it gets to a way that it's going to be cost-effective enough for a wider range or a wider mass of retailers to make sense to implement this solution, because currently the costs are pretty high. So it's kind of a niche segment that is able to use these technologies properly, and for them to get some sort of return on investment, these solutions.
Excellent. So what else is Laurel working on? What does the future hold? I know you had posted something on LinkedIn about voice interaction at self-checkout, kiosk.
I mean, in Europe, accessibility is getting a regulation, so we're kind of preparing for that. I mean, voice stopping is the technology that I was posting about.
And how would that work? Would that be someone sitting remotely talking back and forth? Is it using AI chatbot?
It's basically an AI technology. So it's sort of like an AI chatbot with the voice interaction. So with voice, you can say hello to the checkout. It will say hello back. And then by voice, you can navigate through the menu. You can add items to the menu. So it's more like
it's like adding Alexa or Siri.
Yeah, it's kind of like that for a kiosk, and it's pretty much like an ordering kiosk at, let's say, a restaurant or a fast food restaurant. And then you can use the voice to navigate through menus, add items. So it's kind of a convenience. You don't need to tap around. The menu is working quite well, actually.
Which I imagine for visually impaired is a huge thing.
Yeah.
They can finally do a self-checkout on their own.
Yeah.
What about people who don't have those challenges, do you think they'll take advantage of the voice interaction, or is that going to be disruptive? Because one of the things you always hear about self-checkouts is, I like to use self-checkout because I don't like to talk to anyone.
Yeah, me neither.
So now we're introducing back, you're talking to, whether or not it's a real person or not, you're talking to someone again. Do you think that's going to, do you think those who are not visually impaired or those who don't have those accessibility issues are going to use that, or is that just going to be an added on feature for those who want it?
Could be an add-on. I mean, also if you look at the phone users, certain people like the text-to-speech, like to use it that way. Certain people prefer typing, so it's sort of a preference. Of course, the noise and the clutter around the self-checkout, so it's not ideal if you have like 6 self-checkouts at a fairly large or loud volume, screaming and making like noise. So from that perspective, I do see a bit of a challenge.
Yes, people probably wouldn't put it in a library.
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But for hospitality, it could be a case. It's kind of like drive-throughs, or even automating, let's say, the functions of drive-throughs. So you stop by your car and then you start talking to someone. It's really the same function could be done through these solutions. So it could be an option. I see it more for the hospitality than actually physical retail, because if you go to a traditional self-checkout in a retail store, you just scan your item or throw your stuff in an RFID basket and just pay and that's it. So you don't really need to, for certain people, of like touching the screen that like hundreds of people touched before. So that could be a case,
right?
Like for hygienical reasons. But I don't see it appearing in a mass way or a mass implementation in traditional retail. Hospitality could be with some feature.
And I think you're right. Certainly for drive-throughs, perhaps this could be a more faster solution too.
Yeah.
What else are you allowed to talk about? Anything else exciting that you guys are working on?
I mean, currently it's still the 24/7 is a core focus that we're scaling up right now and gonna be pushing forward. So that's a big thing. I mean, the full self-checkout or fully self-checkout FMCG retail is also a focus for us this year. And kind of are moving into what we were talking about earlier, is the AI and the loss prevention around self-checkouts, and kind of simplifying them, scaling them down, that smaller stores or smaller stores with smaller revenue and turnover can also afford that. And that's also kind of related to the 24/7 operation, because right now our self-checkouts are pretty much high-performance devices. So we scale them to be able to manage 300, 400, 500 transactions a day per self-checkout. But again, the cost on the chassis, the frame itself, and the whole package is, I would say, requires a certain amount of revenue to be able to drive that 2 or 3 years ROI. So we kind of trying to scale that down. Probably add some AI features. And also, age recognition could be a good feature for the alcohol sales, but that's also kind of related to local regulations.
Yes.
But so we definitely should be adding some AI product recognition for fruit and veg and fresh items also coming. So we're planning to do that and also scale up the gate solution with the AI based. Kind of make it frictionless for the checkouts, also moving into that area as well.
Excellent. So we're running out of time. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything else you wanted to share?
I think we covered quite a lot.
Okay. So let's catch up again next year. We can chat about how much your AI solutions have evolved and the state of retail. It's a challenging time to be in retail, but it's also an exciting time, especially with all the evolutions and innovations that you're coming up with.
Yeah, a lot of small incremental things are adding up. And if you look back a few years, then it's like a huge step.
Yes, and next year it'll look entirely different too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for giving us the time to join us. If you would like to learn more about Laurel or Attila, we have tagged them both in our show notes. And if you enjoyed this podcast, I would love it if you could like, share, and follow us. You can find us on Apple Podcast and Spotify.